All right, so today, President Obama hosted the Iraqi Prime Minister at the White House. And it was a big event with a joint press conference and an air of celebration. Or, at the least, the president wanted it to be seen as a historic event.
In the coming days, the last American soldiers will cross the border out of Iraq. After nearly 9 years, our war in Iraq ends this month. We're here to mark the end of this war. We discussed how the United States could help Iraq train and equip its forces, not by stationing American troops there or with U.S. bases in Iraq. Those days are over. So this is a historic moment. A war is ending. A new day is upon us.
Now, let's not forget that President Obama is relishing in this moment because he gets to pretend like he's fulfilling a campaign promise to bring the war in Iraq to an end. A war that he opposed as a senator, called dumb while he was campaigning, and all of that worked to his advantage thanks to a bitter public mood after 8 years of the Bush administration and its policies. However, we all know that this isn't really the way that he planned it. Let's not forget that all spring and summer of this year, we heard one official after another, including both the former and the current Secretary of Defense, saying that if Iraq wants it, the troops will stay. And in fact, it was the U.S. that wanted it more, was doing all the pressuring behind the scenes, but ultimately it broke down over negotiations over legal immunity for the U.S. troops. So they kind of told us to get out, rather than what the president would like to now claim as a fulfillment of his promises. But anyway, that's only one element that could easily be picked apart by anybody that pays attention. Let's see what critique our mainstream media decided to provide.
December 31st, that's going to mark the end of this 9-year period, the war itself.
The two nations will cooperate in a new era without U.S. troops.
Almost 9 years after the start of the Iraq War, President Obama is meeting with Iraq's prime minister to mark the end of this war.
Right now, only 6,000 troops remain in Iraq. In the next couple of weeks, they'll all be out.
U.S. troops prepared to leave Iraq by the last day of the year.
The last remaining U.S. troops in Iraq are preparing to come home.
How has that relationship been over the years, and are we, ending this in the right way?
So really, guys, you're celebrating too, playing along with the game that it's all over? Are we ending it in the right way? Well, how about talking about the fact that despite all the troops leaving at the end of this year, there will still be a massive American presence in Iraq. You know, the 1,700 or so diplomats, law enforcement officers, and various other experts and professionals in the fields of agriculture and economics that are going to be there. And of course, they won't be there alone. Just because the troops are gone doesn't mean that they will dare get by without security. And it's quite a security detail indeed. The State Department is going to have 5,000 contractors for protection of its diplomats. On top of that, there's going to be another 4,000 to 5,000 contractors serving other roles locally. So that's already almost 12,000 people that are still going to be there. Not exactly what I would call a full withdrawal. Then, we know that the president is still saying that there might be a possibility that troops might go back at some point in 2012 to train the Iraqi troops. So why can't anybody out there in the media just cut through the BS and say that outright? It's ridiculous. But then again, can't really say I'm all that surprised. Do you remember when the combat mission in Iraq formally ended in August of 2010? And yet, there were still 50,000 U.S. troops that were going to stay in the country. Well, this is how the mainstream media treated that fake ending, by going all out.
As all these soldiers leave Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom, the combat mission in Iraq will be over. 10 to 4 in the morning, and I believe we have just seen the last American combat soldier cross into Kuwait. Yes, the gates are closing right now.
Seeing what we just saw right here live with that gate closing behind the last U.S. combat troop, I'm totally covered in goosebumps.
Honestly, it's just becoming pathetic, the way the mainstream media decides to toe the line, regurgitate everything that our officials say, despite the fact that it's just blatantly not true. Or, okay, fine, you want to go on technicalities, you can say that all U.S. troops will be leaving Iraq at the end of the year, but it's really so convoluted because of the thousands of people that will stay that you have to get into it. So it's not so cut and dry. It's not so black and white. Do you really think that people forget that quickly that you've played this entire it's over game before? And let's talk about the Iraq that we've now left behind. Not only trillions of our own money spent, thousands of troops who lost their lives, who knows how many contractors have lost their lives, and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians that are possibly dead. As many as 2 million Iraqis that are now displaced. And yet the president said today that we leave with our heads held high. And because he said it, The mainstream media thinks that it must be so. Some real analysis and questions about that 9-year-long war. Well, that's what they choose to miss.